Hello, welcome. This talk is mostly about Git. There is a risk that I might evangelize about open source. Sort of depends how much time I have left when I get to the end. I could do that for a full hour, so I'll try not to. So, I'll introduce myself. I'm not particularly well known in this community, and that's because I know nothing about CakePHP, other than you seem like quite friendly people, your docs are quite good, and I mostly send newbies in your general direction. I don't go there myself, although probably I should. I'm a PHP consultant, I'm an author, I sometimes speak at conferences, I deliver quite a lot of training. I'm almost local to Manchester, because I live about an hour away in Leeds. That's my GitHub URL. I have all kinds of things forked to there. Since I'm talking about GitHub, I thought you might be interested. So I'm Lorna Jane on GitHub, I'm Lorna Jane on Twitter, and I'm lornajane.net. That's my site, which is mostly blog. I blog rather a lot. So, let's talk about source control. The whole point of source control is it gives you somewhere to keep your source. There's no ambiguity about which version there is on the server or who edited it last. The designers were working on it last week, you should take their version, okay? It's a canonical, this is the right version kind of a tool. And that's what we're trying to achieve when we use a source control tool. We have a history of what changed. You know who changed, who made a change, what they changed, and when they changed it. In theory, you know why they changed it, but that is dependent entirely on the quality of your commit messages. If you commit messages which say things like fixed, bugs, yeah, you've no idea why you changed it. If I see those in my commit logs for a team that I'm working on, I wait 3 weeks. Then arrive at your desk looking slightly angry and scowly, demand to know what it was you were doing. Of course, you've got no idea because your commit message says fixed. I find typically that sorts people out. One episode of having me arrive at your desk angry normally does the trick. Meaningful commit messages usually result after that. So I recommend that as an approach to any commit messages which say fixed. Source control is also intended to allow us to collaborate. It's to allow a bunch of us to work on different features, different aspects of an application which might touch the same code, and to do that in a very painless way. Ideally, your source control tool should really just get out of the way. Not sure that's always true of Git, but anyway, let's talk more about how I feel about Git when I get to the end of this and I've shown you what it is we're actually dealing with here. So in the more traditional kind of source control setup, something like Subversion, I hear rumors of this thing called CVS, but I'm not old enough to have ever actually used it. That's my claim anyway. I just didn't find out about source control soon enough, kinda. You have like a central repository and people check code out from here. When you work with Git, it looks a bit different because everything's a repository. So the organization has a repository and different users have different repos they can work on. There's something missing from this diagram. In Git, as well as communicating with the sort of nominated central repo, you can also push and pull changes between every other repository. So there's actually lines between every pair of repositories in this diagram. This diagram is generated by a tool named GraphViz. It automatically generates diagrams because automatically generated looks an awful lot better than what happens if I don't have any supervision. And when you put lines between all the points, you get this, which pretty much sums up what happens when you try to use Git for source control for the first time. Git on its own is very confusing. You have no way of knowing who has repos, what changes are in those repos, where they are located, where they are moved to, where things have moved around between. It's just one big, huge potential for catastrophe. And the result of that is we tend to use some supporting tools to give it some semblance of sanity. We need to keep track of commits that are happening on other people's repos, where those repositories are, what branches are in them, what's happening there. The relationships between repositories, who forked from where? You know, is this related to this repository or are the two just called the same thing? So the relationships between the repositories is really important. And also the pull requests, where things came from, where they were merged into, how we keep track of things. So when we work with Git, and this isn't specific to Git, if you're using Mercurial, Bazaar, something else which escapes me, then you kind of have all the same problems, because with great power comes great responsibility. So, usually whatever tool is providing this also gives you a way of doing documentation. GitHub has wikis, now has pages, shows you can do sort of browsing different versions of the files under source control in different people's repositories, different branches at different versions. You can diff between versions and so on and so forth. I heard a rumor that GitHub's issue tracker is actually vaguely useful nowadays. The project that I run joined in. We migrated away from it about 18 months ago because we just couldn't, it wasn't finished. I hear it's got better. So GitHub is our tool. Let's talk about it. GitHub's sort of mission statement that they have on their main homepage reads, "We make it easier to collaborate with others and share your projects with the universe." And that's true whether it's something cool you just hacked up in an afternoon that you think other people might want to use, or whether it's a really large and important project like CakePHP. You know, whether you're managing loads of contributors or very few, GitHub aims to make it easy for you to do that. GitHub is a hosted source control solution. You can get tools that you download and keep on your internal servers. You don't have to do Git with GitHub. The two seem synonymous in open source. They don't need to be. Certainly a lot of enterprises have their own solutions. Git is often used by open source projects and for personal projects. GitHub has some paid for offerings for non-public code. Their pricing models differ sort of depending what your requirements are. There are lots of other ways to do Git and open source and probably everything else. I'm picking quite a narrow use case just to give me something to hang the examples on. If we talked about all the options, we'd be here all night. So, we're going to get involved with a project on GitHub. Here is the short version. Find what it is that you want to get involved with, fork that repository, create a clone of that repository. So, we go here, CakePHP docs, and we press the fork button. So I had this great idea that despite the fact I know nothing about CakePHP, I would just, clone the repository, fix some code, show you the examples, everything would be awesome. Yeah, it turns out actually CakePHP doesn't really have easy to fix bugs, and I don't know anything about it. They have significantly more qualified developers already in this project. So, handily, their docs are also in GitHub, and I'm just about at the right level to be able to make a contribution here, so that's what I did. So, this is GitHub, this is the organization, URL, this is the project, docs, we fork it. And what happens is we get our own copy on GitHub of the docs repo. So you go here, and I've suddenly got Lorna Jane/docs. I'm not sure if you can read the URL, but yeah. So that's the URL. And we grab this URL, literally go here, copy and paste it, because you're going to need it. We need to clone the repository. Git clone, name of URL. Optional extra argument if you want to say give the name of the directory. So what I've done here is CakePHP has a docs project. I have forked that project to create Lorna Jane's doc project. Then I clone it to bring it from GitHub down onto my machine. Now I've got a working copy, I can see the code, I can set up my virtual hosts, everything's going to be awesome. This is quite an important step. Adding the upstream remote. This is wrapped really badly. This needs to be over here. It's all one command. Git add remote. Name of remote. Address of remote. So by default, when you clone, your GitHub repo gets called origin. So you do this so that Cake's GitHub repo gets called upstream. And then you've got a way of it's got a name. You've got a way of pulling in changes from upstream. So as the docs continue to evolve, lots of people are contributing, you can get those changes in really easily. So that's why we give it a name at this point. So this is the current state of play. CakePHP has a docs project, Lorna Jane has a docs project, and I I did a Git clone and I checked it out onto my development machine, handily sitting over there. So that's awesome. I am a GitHub user. Everything is great. Now what do we do? Let's talk about Git. I'm going to show you the key commands. This isn't everything, but that's because it takes many years to understand the vagaries of Git. Here are some basic things which I think should allow you to get the changes that are happening in the project, make your own changes, and share them back to the project. Okay? Git Log and Git Show will tell you what is going on. Git Status and Git Diff will tell you what you just did. Git Add lets you start asking Git to actually apply those changes. Git Commit is like every other kind of source control commit. Pushing and pulling, and most importantly, reverting changes. I find this is often missing from the beginner manuals, yet it's something that I needed rather a lot myself when I started learning Git, so we will talk about that. I'm also going to talk about branching, because it's not an optional extra. It's good practice. You need to learn how to do it if you're going to contribute to an open source project. So, Git Log. Type Git Log and Git will send that to something like less. So you will just get a bit of output that tells you what's happened recently. This is what was going on in the middle of August when I was making these slides. Here's some things that people had merged in recently. All good. Okay? So you just see what's happened recently, what the most recent changes are. Git Log. Git automatically sends the output to something like less, so you get a screenful, you can press space, get another screenful, and so on. You can search within it. No, I'll save my rude comments for later. Git Log also takes some additional arguments, which LaTeX has kindly completely ruined. Git Log -- graph -- one line. And that gives you something that looks like this. Ideally, you've turned on colors in your terminal, and this will all be a bit funkier, but it didn't. My screenshots in this toolchain end up looking like the cat ate them, chewed them, and kind of spat them back out. So the code copy-paste is easier to read, but less pretty. So here you can see this is what's been going on recently. People have merged things in, then there's been someone's added a PDF link change. Lots of little bits and pieces going on. A couple of changes came in together on the same branch, and so on. So that's Git Log. Git Status tells you what's going on in your local working copy. I ended up forking the docs because I was trying to read the docs, and there was this sort of glitch in the markup that was kind of annoying me, and I was like, I have an idea. I'm going to fix this and thereby solve my own problem of needing some Git examples for you. So I jumped in, edited the restructured text, and you can see it here. I've edited the file, okay? Git Status, and you can see very clearly it's labeled changes not staged for commit. So this is a change which is in my local source tree, but Git's not going to do anything with it until it's told to. So at this point, I've made my change, but nothing else is going to happen until I add it. We use Git Add. Here's Git Add. Git Add the file that you'd like to add. So you can make as many changes as you like in your local source directory. Only the ones that you specifically mark to get controlled will be included in the next commit. And that's in distinct contrast to Subversion. And in fact, Mercurial adds things by default as well. Doesn't add new files, but does add changes. So we do Git Add. When you do Git Status the next time, you see changes to be committed, and your file has moved up to here. So often you'll have both sets. You'll have changes to be committed, some stuff that you've added, changes not staged for commit, stuff you haven't added because you forgot, or because it's written some files to the cache and they're not under git ignore, or anything else could have happened. There's a bunch of things not staged and some things staged. So it has this concept of changes that we've made, changes we care about, and then you send things off into the repository. Git commit. Do git commit -m and send it a message. I feel confident you're all going to manage this. Only the things that were marked as staged for commit when you did Git Status will get sent here. So if you forget to add it and you do this, it'll say, no changes were staged for commit. And you'll go, oh yeah. You can supply a list of files. So if you have multiple files staged, you can still commit bits and bobs of files. You can add sections of files. So for those annoying moments where you started fixing one thing and you had to go and fix something else, and really that should be 2 changes, but you've put them all into one. Git Add interactive, that's again -- interactive, thanks LaTeX, allows you to add this chunk, stage just a chunk of a file, commit that, and then go on and stage the rest of it. So that's quite a neat trick, particularly if you are new to to Git and to committing in such small atomic pieces. It's very easy to hack all morning and then be like, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be using the source control thing. So Git has all the tools that you need to make it look like you're doing a great job, even on the days when actually you're kind of firefighting. To undo changes that you haven't staged yet. So you've committed, or you've only just cloned. There's no changes in your repository. You make some changes. Then you realize that you're crazy and you've gone off on a tangent. Okay? This happens to me frequently, usually just after lunch. I find that's my crazy moment. Just after I have a break for lunch and I come back, I have no idea what I was doing, and I just go off on one. So if you haven't staged those changes, you just check out with 2 dashes whichever file or files it was. You'll get the most recent version from the repository. If you have saved the changes, you can still undo that. Git reset unstages them. So the changes are there, but it's before Git add. So Git reset just unstages. Git reset -- hard, and you can put files here, so if you don't want to do that to everything, you can be specific. Actually puts everything, throws everything away, takes you back to the last commit. So you can sort of put things in and take things out as you need to. Okay, so this is all great. We've gone from the organization repo to your repo to a local working copy, and we know how to work with our local working copy, which is great, but we still need to be able to move a bunch of changes around. So, going to show you some instructions on how to do this. So, let's say you've got really good intentions of contributing to the CakePHP documentation. You follow my examples precisely, you fork, you clone, and then life gets in the way. 3 months later, when you come back to this, there will be more changes. You've only got the code as it was when you cloned. So the new changes that have gone into the project, you need those before you can do anything. And this is particularly true. I had a question come into my email this week from a friend who was trying to keep up with the Zen Framework 2 changes. And he had, faithfully forked and cloned and then couldn't understand how to get the changes down because it was not his repo, it's the organization repo. So, remember that little remote we added upstream? That's the magic key to this. So, you clone, stuff happens upstream. Other wonderful and worthy contributors fix stuff or add things, add translations in the docs project. To get those, you pull the changes from that repo direct into your development repo on your machine. Git pull. Upstream, this is the remote that we've made, which means this repo, and you're going to pull the master branch. So you pull that master branch down, and you get the changes from the upstream organization repo into your actual code base. Awesome. They still need to go here, though, to keep everything up to date. So it's dropped off. Rubbish. This says git push. Okay, so you pull changes from here to here, and you just git push. And git push pushes everything back to your GitHub repository. When we make changes here, we'll do git push here as well, so that they go onto GitHub and become visible to the world. So you don't have to give everybody access to your local working copy for people to see your changes. I feel like I'm going too fast. Is everyone okay? Still okay? Majority of nodding. And the first slot after lunch, that's very impressive, and I thank you for being a very respectful and interactive crowd. Yeah, this is my crazy moment. You're my crazy moment. Yeah. Okay, so branching in Git. If you have had bad experiences branching or merging with other source control tools, Subversion, try and forget those bad experiences, because Git was designed for this. It is fast, it is painless, you are not going to get into the same level of mess as it is possible to do with Subversion. I have extensive experience on this topic, and I have not achieved anything quite as impressive with Git. So any branching and merging phobias you may have probably are justified, but Git is really a different beast. It's also quick. People, when I first started using Git, everyone was like, oh, you must use Git, you must use Git. It's amazing. It's got these really incredible features, none of which I actually wanted. And it's really, really fast. Really? Because Subversion's not slow. You know, I don't sword fight in between commits. Anyway, oh my God, Git is so fast. And the reason is, your repository is local. When you do the clone from GitHub, you've got everything in your local repository. So you can diff and log and commit and everything. And it's immediate. You're not trolling off to the server and waiting for it to come back to you. Everything's just here. So it makes the stuff that you do happen very much quicker. Branches are private by default. How you feel about this probably depends where you are in the development team management tree. Developers tend to like this feature. So if you're working on something, you've got your repository, it's checked out onto your machine, right? You make a new branch, and you work on that for as long as you want. Commit as often as you like. No one else can see it. So it's not, I can't commit till I finish this feature. It's not, I don't want anyone else to know that I even tried this. You can have all of the powerful tools of your source control available, but no one else has to see your code. So that's can appeal to some developers. Personally, I like it if people push their branches onto GitHub, just because if your hard drive dies, then we don't lose everything. But that does then mean that people can see that. So it depends what you're working on. Within an organization, a commercial organization, I would insist that everything gets pushed onto a remote host for hard drive failure reasons, and also for transparency reasons. If someone's really going off on one, I need to know that as a tech lead. So this is a good feature, and one that you might look at how you use it in the process that you set up. And all of these distributed systems, because there are so many options, are all about having a good process, having a good workflow, having a way in which things are done. Branches are in the repository. They are not copies. So you don't copy the code from here to here and have a trunk and a feature branch in two different directories with a virtual host per directory, or you change your configuration and restart Apache or whatever. You clone your repository onto your hard drive, you point your doc root at it. When you change branches, the files just present the alternative version. They change. You say to the repository, be this branch, be that branch, be this revision, and it just presents you that version of reality. So you're, in a single directory, you can have any of those parallel universes, you just ask for it. So you're not setting up lots and lots of virtual hosts when you branch. It's very easy to branch. You can branch and decide this was a really bad idea and never commit to that branch. Like, whatever. Yeah, I just said all of that. That was a bit of a rant. Okay, this is one that I just found that was really life-changing when I started working with Git. Subversion, when you branch, then you end up, usually have a doc root that's a symlink, and I'm pointing it at whichever version of branching I'm trying to use right now, and it's got configuration that needs to be linked in, and it's all a bit of a nightmare. So the way that Git does it, where you just set up your web root, it's got the repo in, and you just, yeah, be this, be that, all just works. I'm on the joined-in open source project that I ran. I ran a really long time with an API branch. We were building a new API, and it was out as a feature branch, but not in master, for quite a long time, because it took me a long time to decide how I was going to implement it. And it was out for about 4 months before I merged it back in. So it was great. I would just be like, you're the API branch, you're the master branch, and they were really different versions, and that was fine. I could just pull the changes that were happening in master into the API. Everything was cool. Okay, so I said that branching is amazing and wonderful, but how do you actually do that? You do this. Git checkout with a -b, give your branch a name. Anything you like. If you're working with some kind of task tracker, good to have the number in there. Otherwise, something that you will know what it is about when I come scowling to your desk and ask you what it was. So that's all. You just need a meaningful name. To switch between branches, git checkout, the name of the branch. So -b if you need to make it. Don't use -b if you don't need to make it, if it's there already. You can do git branch to get a list, and that shows you all the branches that you have with a little star next to the one that you're on right now. So you can see where you are. I never know which branch my repo is going to be on when I go back to my machine. Like, I go there and it's like, aha, going quaff, and I start hacking, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Git branch. Oh, look. Check it. But because it doesn't matter if you haven't staged your changes, it doesn't matter. When you switch branches, your as yet unstaged changes just follow you around. And you can stash them and get them back later, or they can just kind of trail you until you're ready to add them onto the right branch and commit. When you branch and then push, your branch won't automatically appear on GitHub. Remember I said that branches are private by default? They will stay in your local working copy until you want to put them onto GitHub. So you make the decision about whether this branch is yours or one that you want to make visible to the world. Any questions about branching? Yeah. You ask the best questions. Go for it.
I didn't notice any references to stashing.
Correct. You can stash. If you have changes, you can stash them. Yeah. Like, if I tried to cover every Git command, I'll still be here at a time you wish you were in the bar. So that might be now, actually. 2 o'clock, reasonable. Best practice in branching. Basically, branch. If you're working on a feature, make a new branch for that. If you're working on a bug fix, make a new branch for that. If you're just trying something out, you're not sure if this is going to be a feature, branch for that. Basically, branch. As a project lead, I don't accept pull requests that aren't the tip of a new branch, because it's just the simplest way to do it, and it's very easy then for me to go back around and say, can you also do this, or don't do that, or whatever. And we still are just looking at the tip of this branch. And when we're good, then I'll merge it. I don't really like taking random commits where I'm not sure about the surrounding. Very easy to merge to another repo. Yeah, when you put in a pull request, very easy. So, basically you've solved the problems of the world. You have forked the repo, cloned it, you've got your version, and you've made the best feature ever. Except right now it's sitting on your laptop in your local cloned repository. And it wants to be here, shared with the world, contributed back to the project. First thing we do, we push. You might need to specifically push the branch. If you created it here, you need to push it, git push origin name of branch, so that your branch stops being private and starts tracking the remote repo. Once your feature's here, you can see it on the go. Yes?
Just because you started with branching, do you suggest pushing the branch back into your master on your local clone copy before pushing it to the origin, or do you want the person to expose their branch to origin?
That's a really good question. So I'll repeat in case it didn't go across the stream. When you've got on your local development copy, when you've built this awesome local feature, I've said that you should make it in a branch. Should you merge it into master here, or would you expose the branch onto GitHub? It depends on your project's process. I like the branch to be exposed onto GitHub. And that's the way I normally, that's kind of the common pattern that I'm seeing with PHP projects. So you would create the branch here, and then actually push that branch to be visible on GitHub. So you push, git push, and you need to say, push to the origin, this particular branch because the branch isn't tracking already. Git push on its own pushes all the branches which are matched between here and here. The ones that have a link will all get pushed. You need to push something new, you need to name it. I had a question. Yes?
With GitHub's new pull request, it's a lot easier to pick commits from master, like if you did merging in. But if you want to add something to the class, then it's different.
Yeah, which is
It's better with a branch.
kind of why I like branches, and I've written that into the guidelines for my project. I heard that the GitHub had got a bit better with it. We've been on GitHub for 3 years. So, say, yeah?
Might not be accepted by the upstream, and so your master is caught up with the
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually, that Mark's making.
not aware.
Yeah, if you merge it into your master, then your master differs from their master. And then the next time you branch off your master, it'll have stuff. So, yeah, no, I typically leave things in branches. So the only thing that comes into my master is what comes from upstream. And then and I branch off master and do stuff. And then I offer that stuff up to upstream, and if it goes, then it comes back that way. I don't usually merge across in between. I do hop features around, like the API branch had some like sub-branches that kind of, because it was humongous, and then there were like small things I wasn't really sure how I was going to implement, and they kind of forked off and merged back in. I'm also project lead, so I merge in whatever I like. So, yeah. I write the documentation and I merge whatever I like to. We have this little GitHub bot that like pops into the channel and says, this, and this all just got merged to master. So whenever I like merge, push, log into IRC and justify my actions. It's like that. I just merged, I know that I said we weren't making any changes this week, but I just merged this tiny little thing and all our continuous integration is public as well for joined in. So people can see what I deployed, when I deployed, which tests failed, etc. So I just pop in and say, yeah, hi guys, yeah. So you push your branch up to GitHub. So now GitHub has your branch. What we want to do next is you don't have write access to here. So you can't just push to here. You can pull down, you've got read access. You just can't push to here. You don't want any old clown writing to the CakePHP docs project because it'll just get defaced or something. Right, that's why we have access control. So there are some trusted people that can write to this, but you can't. So what we do is we ask for our patch to be applied. We request, it's a pull request, we request that they pull from our repo. So you've pushed your branch onto GitHub, so your GitHub repo, this is my Lorna Jane Docs repo, your GitHub repo has this drop down for branches. And you drop down this list and select your new branch with the cool feature on it. So select that, page reloads, press this button, pull request. So then you're asking a pull request to be made for the branch. This appears in the queue of pull requests for the CakePHP docs repo. Somebody will get the notification, see that, check out your pull request, realize that your feature is awesome, and merge it. That's the plan. So it appears here, and you can look what the pull requests are, the public ones. Don't look at the joined in list, because there are some really old ones on there. I've been absolutely frantic recently. Hopefully it's fabulous and gets merged. When it gets merged, you appear here. Bragging rights. You appear on the contributors list. And GitHub has record of that. Resume.github.com shows everything that you've contributed to. Well, that's neat, okay? So as soon as you start pushing changes into recognized open source projects, you've got your footprint. I'm seeing a lot of recruiters asking for GitHub usernames. And this is why. They will check out your resume and see what you're involved with, what you're actually contributing to. Listing of forked projects is a good start. Having changes accepted upstream, that rocks. This is my pull request. It was accepted and closed. I forgot to check on it until I was updating. I did a final rehearsal on Friday and I was like, oh look, they actually accepted it. So now I'm a contributor to the CakePHP docs project. Exactly, it's awesome. No, you're very welcome. I need to dig in and fix something a bit more meaningful at some point. So, getting involved with a new project, whether it's Cake, whether it's joined in, whether it's something else completely, because I guess everyone has different interests, can be a little bit daunting. But most project leads want you to get involved. They want to make it easy for you. So have a look for introductory documentation. Cake has fabulous documentation. There's a I am nobody in Cake terms. Like, I've never even installed this thing. But still, I was able to very clearly see where their code base was and how they wanted me to contribute to it in terms of the docs. There were instructions on how to render the docs, how to check my restructured text markup for validity, how they wanted their branches named, how to push the branches, how to name them, press the pull request, and so on. So the docs your mileage will vary between projects as well. But Cake itself, and I hope Joined In, have good places to start that say, come in, welcome, look over here, any questions, you can find us in this channel. And you could go there and ask questions. Get the code and set up the project. Most of the time, if it's a code project, you literally find the project that you're interested in. Sometimes it'll be something big, CakePHP. Sometimes it's somebody's Vim RC or some other small little tool sitting around on their GitHub repository. It's just their project. They've just put it there, probably for safekeeping in their own right, to make it easy to share with people. Either way, fork it, grab the code, clone it down, read the README. Always a good place to start. Don't ask any questions in a channel without having read the README. Okay? Even the most friendly and welcoming of communities will kick you at that point. Read the README, then you can ask questions. And start with, I read the README, but I'm still confused. Okay? Good tip. Find the bug tracker and pick something. This is what I was trying to do. I was trying to fix CakePHP. I was hoping they would have something like slightly niche that I would know about. No, they have expertise beyond my wildest dreams. So it actually was a little bit difficult for me to jump in and fix something immediately. But there are lots of cases where it would be helpful for particularly you guys with more experience with CakePHP to jump in here on Lighthouse, have a look at the issues that are open, and at least replicate what you see there. It works for me on this system. I had the same problem on Windows 8. Like, whatever it is, jump in, get involved, read the comments. It's all here. Because you've got an easy way of keeping up to date with the bleeding edge of the code, you're seeing the same versions as the core contributors. So you don't get that situation where someone's reported a bug and you say, it works for me. That's because you're 2 versions behind. You know, they are working on the code that's 4 hours old. And now you can be too, because it's easy with GitHub. Talk to the other people in the project. CakePHP live here, according to their documentation. I don't know if they really live here. I didn't really look. But anyway, yeah, they do. They do. There we are. I have it on good authority. The CakePHP people live here. So you can come here and ask them questions and just get involved with the project. Open source is there for us all to improve things incrementally. And if it's fixing a little bit of broken markup, like I did in the docs, or building a whole new feature for the newest version of Cake, helping them to maintain some of the plugins that got out of date, moving things between repositories, there's always things that need doing in an open source project. And the more kind of hands-on deck you can get, the better. Even if you're just interested in what's happening with the new versions, you've heard the guys talking about what's happening in CakePHP, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a repo of that and just play with it. See what happens as the changes come in, what happens to your applications with them based on the newest version. Weird things will break, but you might be interested in that. I think it's really, really important to get involved. Share and enjoy. When you pull code and modify it for your own purposes, share it. That's what open source is for. I do have issues with people who pull it and fix it, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll fix that somewhere. If you know you're going to do that, branch. And just let me know. Even if it's like a mailing list post which says which branch it's on, at least then it's vaguely out there. Somebody might pick that up, merge it into their own branch, package for the pull request, whatever it is. Some organizations will require tests to be submitted, for example. So don't hide it, put it on a public branch, let someone know it's there. You might pick it up in the future, someone else might pick it up in the future. I had one on Joined In where someone got really drunk and enthusiastic at a hackathon and was like, we must have login with Twitter for Joined In. And I was like, go for it, knock yourself out. And then about 3 months later, a different drunk person at a conference, there's a theme here, came up to me and said, we must have login with Twitter. And I said, well, Evo was working on that. Oh, I wonder what happened. So I pinged Evo and he said, it's not finished, but I'll push it. So he pushed it to GitHub. Somebody did a bit more. He got stuck. Someone else helped him. Then the previous person got it back. Somebody else put the final points on it. Oh, yeah, made the buttons because they were a bit sucky. But this is because we're in the channel saying, look at this branch, look at this branch, look at this branch. And this branch, bearing in mind that I'm the project maintainer, I never saw this branch until the pull request eventually came in. 5 people had contributed, had commits on this branch that eventually I got a pull request for. I merged it to test, it didn't work. Someone else completely fixed it, updated the pull request, and we eventually got this feature in where 6 different people had all kind of done a little piece each. And together we had built quite a big function. Although Mark managed to break our login with Twitter this week, so I think he is next for sorting out this feature. I must fix that. Okay, so that was my overview of like physically how to get involved with GitHub and open source, and also some little tips there for Git. I also have a written version of this with joined in examples, which was in PHP Architect and is now out of copyright, so it will go on my blog this week. So if you prefer a written version, watch my site this week. Any questions? I do have a few minutes. I can take a few questions. Or we could all have a nice sit down. I don't mind. Yeah.
This might be a very basic question, but branch names, can they be letters and numbers, alphanumeric, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Anything that you can like name a file really.
Yeah, it's letters, numbers, hyphens. Not sure if it can start with a number.
Yeah.
Not sure why it can.
You can just use like.
Yeah, okay.
Underscores and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Or you like type in the command into shell, so you probably start getting funny things if you're doing like exclamations and stars and backslashes.
But yeah, not spaces, but basic alphanumeric is fine. That was quite a good question. Any other questions? Yes.
So yeah, as a developer, I'm feeling so happy to using GitHub, but collaborating with like a designer or coder on GitHub is still kind of difficult. So do you have any good idea to do that?
Working with designers and trying to teach them to use Git. Yeah, fundamentally this is really difficult. I've seen designers that knew how to use Subversion, so knew that they needed to make changes and then commit. I've seen situations where people have made the designers a branch and taught them just to keep committing to this branch, and had some access to pull in the updates for them, or made them a button to press which runs the right command. Seen people use Git Flow and some other wrappers which kind of give you a step away from what's going on. I don't like to work that way because I'm a project maintainer, so I have to understand what's going on. So I've seen some wrappers, but basically I think working with managers, designers, or junior developers is the biggest thing against working with Git. Git is not aimed at normal person, it's aimed at Linus. Okay? It's a sliding scale, of course, between your most junior designer and Linus. The majority of people I work are nearer this end. If you end up in a situation where you need to use Subversion for this reason, there are some cool tools out which will help you. So something like Git SVN, which give you as a developer some of the local features in the meantime. Yeah. The GUI tools are not really catching up. And I think that's giving a problem to anyone who doesn't want the enormous learning curve. The biggest thing I hate about Git is how much you have to know about Git in order to write code in whatever you are actually expert in. Like, it doesn't really get out of the way. You really have to know a lot about it, which annoys me immensely. Say that again? The Pro Git book. Yeah, there are some quite good Git books. I'm not sure you should really need to have to read a whole book before you're able to make changes to a code project, but there we are. Yeah. Yeah, the GitHub help docs as well are really good. So at any point, if you're not sure what to do, press the button.
I just sent a comment on joined in for you, but if you go to try.github.com, it gives you a great introduction to Git and pushing to GitHub.
Yeah, cool. So the GitHub docs are really good, and they're GitHub specific, which is ideal. Yeah, I have the help docs linked from a couple of places in my article. So yeah, like don't be afraid of just diving in, having a look around. Like every problem that you can have, someone's had, you'll find it on Stack Overflow, and the answer will be there as well. So because it's so widely used now, you can really easily get support, either specifically in the project channel for whatever you're getting involved with, or just like generally out there. A lot of the projects use similar formats.
GitHub on IRC is really popular.
Oh, is it? Okay, I've not used that. Git recommendation for GitHub on IRC.
Like there's a Git channel as well, but they like speaking to Linus.
Yes. Yeah.
But GitHub is like the GitHub.
Yeah, aimed at normal people that like clicking on web buttons. Fair enough. Good. So that's a recommendation for GitHub. Thanks. I've not met those people. Yeah.
The bit about virtual hosts.
Yes.
Quite interesting because previous job I used Subversion, and every time we had a branch, we had to create a new virtual host with the name of the branch. So if I have like a project I'm working on, I'll set up a virtual host, and I'll make a change, and then I'll switch to another branch. What happens? Does it actually change the
Yeah.
file on?
You just refresh your page in the web browser and you get the new version.
Git makes like all the it has a .git folder that's hidden, and it makes like a duplicate copy of each branch like in there. So all it does is when you check out another branch, it like deletes all the code and pulls the code from another branch into like the actual folder.
Yeah, you just imagine like small hamsters holding you up a picture of a different code base, and you press a different button and they rummage around and they come back with this reality, and that's what the web server sees. Yeah, no, I find it really useful. It's just one of those funny things that I didn't really get into. Sorry, octopuses. You're right, octopuses. Absolutely. Next question. Yes.
So a lot of large-scale applications tend to have a branching strategy,
Yep.
which usually aligns with the deployment strategy. Do you have any input on that or opinion?
I've seen a few. I wouldn't say there's a particularly prevailing pattern. So yeah, the question was about the naming conventions for branches, both in sort of developing features and also in deployment. I more see sort of tags for deployment. It tends not to necessarily be branches, although I have seen some of like in Subversion, it was quite common to have a live branch that once things were like ready to go, the changes would get patched across. I've seen that. So you're always deploying off the same branch. Sometimes that's master. So master is always stable. That's how I run joined in. Any pull request which was good enough to come in the code base and end up in master, I will then immediately deploy it. Because there's no reason to wait. If it was good enough to come into master, it's good enough to go live. And it means when something breaks, I know what I just put live. And it was one small thing. Or like 4 things if it's Sunday afternoon and I finally found some time to sit down with my open source project. Things like Git flow, I think, have some conventions. It's very common to have sort of task numbers or bug numbers in your branching as well. I quite like that. But every project has a different flow, so it's different whether it's your vimrc that you've put on GitHub for safekeeping or whether it's Zen framework. So it's quite a different thing. Okay, good. Everyone looks nice and quiet. I think I'm pretty much out of time anyway. So please go and leave me some feedback. I have already uploaded my slides, so when you go and leave me some feedback, then you can grab the slides while you're there. I'm Lorna Jane on Twitter, lornajane.net, so if you want the written version of that article, I'm wrestling the markup at the moment, so it'll be a couple of days. But look here, if you are vaguely local with a PHP user group meets in Manchester the first Tuesday of every month, it's awesome. And we're also running a conference the first weekend in October, so if I didn't grab you with a leaflet yesterday, come and find out more about that or follow them on Twitter, because that's awesome, and it's another conference. Similarly, with sort of a good community feel, bigger, but similarly good community feel that you might enjoy. Cool. Thanks very much.